This week I thought I'd lost £20 this morning, but then it turned out it was in my pocket, and then I thought maybe it was in a pocket dimension while I was trying to find it. You know, when that happens, it's a bit like when you lose a lighter when you're drunk, except I was completely cock. I cannot tell you how much joy doing the research for this particular word has brought me, because not because I've had to develop an art of googling the word cock without being blasted with images of male members, because without any kind of judgment at all, it's not really my preference, but because it's just an inherently funny word, right? Anyway, my main discovery was that there are cocks everywhere. There are woodcocks and stopcocks and cockroaches, cocked hats and cocked guns and cock-ups. There are cocker spaniels and cock-eyed people and cocksure men. There are even haycocks and peacocks and shuttlecocks. There are just so many cocks. Morewords.com lists 155 different types of cocks. There are 28 different cocks in this particular dictionary, and in this quite old edition of the Profanosaurus Rex there are 44 different types of cocks, including cockchops, a pernicious, malicious, seditious fool, a fuckwit, an idiot. The example is the Profanosaurus Rex. Maybe I should do a video on this because it's one of the finest dictionaries known to mankind, but the example in this is the exchange between Armstrong and Aldrin on the moon. Armstrong, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Beep. Aldrin, oi, cockchops, that should have been one small step for a man. The best thing about that particular quote is that it's actually cited. It says, from NASA transcript of Apollo 11 mission, 1969. Other examples are, no, can't use that. Can't use... this one. Cock heavy, descriptive of a drinking establishment blighted with a serious lack of blart. Can't use that. I really can't use that one. Suffice to say, there are a lot of cocks. So what's the etymology? Well, the word cock has its origins in so many different languages that the etymology.com calls its roots echoic. I.e., the French origin is cock, the Norse is cocker, or it's K-O-K-K-R, so maybe the R is silent. I'm not really sure. If you speak Norse, then let me know. The Albanian is kukush. Again, if you speak, I apologise if you're Albanian and I'm not saying that right. The Greek is kukos. The Sanskrit is kukuta, etc., etc. I mean, I could just go on and on. All of the words are very similar, even though, you know, they're very far apart all the way over to... In fact, one of the examples given by etymology.com is Malay. So, I mean, that's a fair old distance from Europe, isn't it? So, yes, all of the languages seem to have sort of influenced each other on that one, hence the term echoic. The original meaning for all of these words is the domestic fowl, the chicken. So that explains all of the cocky birds, i.e. woodcocks and peacocks, and also cocker spaniels, because cocker spaniels were originally bred so that they could hunt woodcocks. So what about the other word, the penis? I have to say, it's not very often in my life that I get the opportunity to say penis, but when I do say it, it always reminds me of a friend who told me a story years and years ago about his sister, that when she was young, she couldn't say peanut butter, she would say peanut butter, which is so adorable and so comical that I wouldn't blame any of the adults in her vicinity for never correcting her. So getting back to the script, the origins of the word cock, as in penis, are unclear. It seems to have reared its head, I'm not sorry for that by the way, it seems to have reared its head sometime in the 14th century. The Middle English term pillcock or Scots pillicock, literally a male cock. For all of the English Britishers out there, the English speakers, if you've ever heard the word pillock, that's the etymology of the word pillock, is a pillcock. So when you're calling someone a pillock, you're calling them a male cock, which interestingly enough, everybody who I know uses that word actually tends to use it in that particular type of context. Usually for a man, usually when they're being a bit of a cock. According to one source, the roots of, well, the roots of the commonality between cocks as in roosters and male fertility goes back quite deep into, I'm not sorry for that either, goes back quite deep into our history, thousands of years apparently. And although a cock doesn't possess a penis, you can kind of see why. I mean, they're very aggressive little upright things with a sort of bright red tip on the top of their tiny little heads. But what about cock-eyed or cocking a gun? Cocking a gun is the act of arming a gun and basically making it ready to fire. You see, back in the olden days, before guns were what they are now, you used to have a literal fuse which would sit on the top of the gun, and then that you'd light that fuse, and then that fuse would all the way to the top, and then it would spark the gunpowder, and then you'd fire your shot off out into the, probably over there, not anywhere near the enemy, because very old guns were highly inaccurate. This was called, oh, by the way, that little bit of fuse was called a serpentine. This design was dropped as soon as they could possibly manage it, because as you can imagine, it's quite dangerous having a little fuse. I mean, people tended to lose parts of themselves when things didn't go quite right. It's all very well having an army with a bunch of guns, but if half of them end up shooting themselves or blowing half their own face off, that's not terribly helpful, is it really? Anyway, later a flint type design was developed, not terribly unlike your lighter that you may or may not have. I imagine you're all very clean living people. What I mean is that what you would have is you'd have a flint on the edge of a bolt, and it would be shaped sort of like that, and then you'd have a steel a bit of steel here, and then when you press the trigger, the flint would go like this and rub against the steel, creating the spark that you need. Now this bit here, this curved bit, was called a cock. So to cock a gun, you lift the bolt up, ready so that it can fire into the bit of steel. Apologies if you know a lot about guns. I've completely mealy-mouthed explained that, but mainly because I live in a country where guns are not glorified quite in the same way as maybe in the United States, so I don't know a whole lot about them, which I think I'm kind of glad about, to be honest. So to cock a gun is to be ready to shoot. But what about cock-eyed? That was first used in the 18th century, meaning to shut one's eye, or for one to shut one eye. Over the last 200 years, the meaning has changed somewhat. I mean, when you see someone who's quite drunk, you know, that sort of glazed look where there's no focus going on, you might say they look a bit cock-eyed. A friend of mine who when I used to live in Cheltenham, a friend of mine used to refer to that sort of look as bonk-eye, which used to make me laugh quite a lot. I mean, that's a whole other thing, bonking. Maybe we should do a video on that. The etymology, again, is, it should be straightforward, but it's not straightforward. The best story that I can find is that it originally came about because when you were cocking a gun, you would close one eye so that you could fire, that you could get your aim down the barrel of the gun and get your sight in the right place, but also so that when the spark went off, so when that cock went down and hit the bit of steel, then you wouldn't be blinded in one eye. There are further explanations for other types of cocks which I haven't covered, and also some of the explanations which I've explained today aren't 100% verifiable. But that's the thing with etymology, you have to kind of live with ambiguity, which is, I think, a skill for life. Sometimes things are one thing and sometimes they're another thing. That's all right though, isn't it? If you're watching this on my Instagram page, then you can find an archive of all of my videos on YouTube. And if you're watching this on my YouTube page, you can go and follow me on Instagram. In both cases, the code, my username is Puzzle Writer, which you can find here and there. Are we all clear? I'm not sure how many times I've said the word cock. Maybe I'll stick a counter in the bottom, although my current editing skills don't quite allow that. So if someone could count them up and then stick it in the comments, I'd be very grateful. Lots of cocks. Thanks very much. Goodbye then. Take care.